Alright guys, it is Sunday 8th of October. It is the day after I just completed the IRONMAN 70.3 Langkawii event, and I thought it would be useful to just do a little post-race briefing, a little post-race review, just to go through how I think I went yesterday. And let me just start off by saying that has got to be one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life, both physically and mentally. All kinds of different emotions throughout the whole event, from the swim to the bike to the run, but I think the thing that killed me was in the run. The jungle heat just got to me. It was just way too much for me to handle, and I just didn't finish as strong as I wanted to. So overall, my time was 6 hours 41 minutes and 59 seconds. I was 37th place out of 67 in the 35 to 39 male age group, 203rd out of 407 by gender, and 253 out of 510 total participants in the 70.3. I finished at exactly 2 p.m. just when it was starting to really heat up, and it is actually my third IRONMAN 70.3 this year. So this year my goal was to finish one IRONMAN 70.3, and I trained for 3 months for it. Finished one, and then before you know it, I ended up doing three events this year. So it's been a very long and hard 8 months of strict training, non-stop training. The first one being in Port Macquarie in May, and then the second one being just 2 weeks ago in Western Sydney, and then now Langkawi 2 weeks after that. So very full on couple of months. So just starting off with the swim, it is 1.9 kilometers in distance. Relatively simple, just a triangle, 400 meters out on the first leg, 700 meters across the two islands, and then a long 800 meters coming back. Now the temperature was 28 to 30 degrees, salt water, and a non-legal wetsuit race. So couldn't wear wetsuits, but you can wear just your tri-suit or a swim skin. But still, even if it was a saltwater swim, I still struggled with the swim. I can't seem to beat that 50-minute mark. A lot slower than what I thought I would do. I had the red cap because I thought I would do a little bit better. I was in zone 1, but my time was at the back of that zone 2, zone 3 kind of mark. But yeah, as you could see, I zigzagged everywhere. I'm pretty consistent with my other two races. All 3 races, my time was 50 minutes. I just can't beat that 50-minute mark. And the funny thing is, all 3 swims were quite different. You know, the first one was a saltwater wetsuit swim, which technically should have been the fastest. The second one 2 weeks ago was a freshwater lake wetsuit swim. So that was difficult for me because in freshwater you sink, but I had the help of a wetsuit. And then this time, no wetsuit, but it was salt water. So I didn't have the help of the wetsuit lifting me up, but I had the salt water to keep me more buoyant. So overall, still performed just as badly in all 3 of them. So in terms of the swim, my average pace was 2 minutes 39, which is hella slow. Now in my age group, I came 47th out of 67. So I was pretty much at the bottom 30% or something like that. 310 out of 407 guys, and 393rd out of 510. So yeah, definitely one of the slower swimmers, which is not a surprise. Yeah, I just also struggled with the sighting. There must be something with my form that even though I know how to sight, after kind of 3 strokes, I look again, I'm veering off on an angle, and I kept bumping into people that were swimming straight, and that's how I knew I was veering off. It was just so hard and just took so long to get to the end. I was struggling, and I knew, you know, my body was already tired, my legs were sinking, and I just couldn't wait to get out of the water. It is the best feeling to finish the swim on all 3 events. Alright, so finishing the swim, I got into transition T1 just at Dana Resort, got my blue bag which had my helmet in it. In hindsight, I should have put my shoes in it as well, because what's different in this race is where your bike is, you're not allowed to leave anything on the floor. The only thing you could put in the morning when the transitions open are stuff that should be placed on your bike. And you take your swim cap, your goggles, and your swim skin, in my case, and put it in the blue bag, and they transport that blue bag into T2 for you to pick up at the end of the day. So I didn't know that I had to clip on my shoes to my pedals, which I have absolutely 0 experience putting that on the fly. Walked out or ran out, and then I got on the bike, and then I'm just pedaling with just my feet outside the shoes, and I tried putting on my shoes on while I was on the go, and I struggled a little bit. I was like, that was the first time I was doing it, trying to concentrate not to fall over, slow down a little bit, but eventually I'm like, nah, this is silly. So I stopped, put on my shoes properly, and then went. So I lost a bit of time at the start, but it wasn't too bad. And overall, like with any of the races, my bike leg was probably my most favorite. Obviously I've got my new Canyon Speed Max here, and it's always enjoyable just smashing it through the course with this rocket here. Gained a lot of time as well. My overall time was 3 hours 12, which I thought was pretty decent, considering there was about 750 to 800 meters of climbing. Now in terms of rankings, came 32nd out of 67 in my age group, so in the top half, which I'm pretty happy with. 195 out of 407. Again on the top half, and then 228th out of 510. So definitely smashed it on the bike, gained a lot of time, averaged 28.1 kilometers an hour. A relatively hard bike course, more climbing than Port Macquarie on my first one, and the one 2 weeks ago was just dead flat.
Yeah, cool!
Yeah, quite an enjoyable course. You got to see pretty much all of the island from the Dana Resort, headed up north to Datai, which is probably where the most climbing and hills in the toughest section was. And then you went back down, it was out and back, go up to Tanjung Ru in the north, come around to the eastern side of the island, all the way until you wrap around to Kua, and then you head west until you get back to the airport. Now the problem with the bike was, since the first bit was all the climbing, all the effort, when I took in my nutrition, my gels, you can imagine you're trying to digest your gels, you're trying to digest your food, and then you're putting in hard effort to get up the hills. But even though if it was an easy gear and high cadence, you're still putting in the effort. So my stomach didn't really agree with that, and very early in the bike, I had gut issues. Not necessarily stitches, but it was just a pain in my stomach, which I knew I wasn't really absorbing the carbs and the sugars, and I was just struggling. Even down in the aero position, trying to absorb the nutrition, my stomach just hurt and I couldn't breathe properly. I was doing half breaths, because every time I tried to inhale a deep breath, it wouldn't expand my lungs, and it just hurt my stomach. So yeah, like very early on, about maybe 40 Ks in, I was just struggling to put out the power, even on the uphills, and especially during the straights where I should have been smashing the speed and gaining time. I couldn't even get up to 190 or 200 watts. I had to stay in the 160 to 170 watts. It was about 50 kilometers. Both my quads cramped. And then if I tried to push anything close to 200 watts or 190 watts, or even stand up, I just felt the quads cramped. So yeah, I had to really dial it back down on the power and just high cadence, average at about 170, 160, even on the flats, which slowed me down a little bit, but I just couldn't go any faster. Otherwise I would have been in trouble for the rest of the bike, and especially for the run. And at about 70 Ks in, the clouds started rolling in, and it just started pissing down rain. Just island tropical storm kind of weather. It just absolutely pelted down rain, which actually felt good. I was just like head down, aero position, pedaling through, just smashing it through the straight roads, and all the raindrops just smashing my bike, smashing my face, and it was actually a good feeling. I would rather have that than the hot beaming sun. There was that one big hill coming back to the airport, which wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought it was going to be a super hard climb, but it was just a gradual, steady uphill. So I was able to maintain that without cramping, and then yeah, got into T2. So T2 is in a different location than T1. It is at the MEIC, the Missouri Exhibition and International Center, which is just next door. So I got in, dropped my bike off, put my helmet back in the bag, got my running shoes, my hat, nutrition, and then went off for a run. So this was at about 11:30, and this is when it started to heat up already. So the sun wasn't out when I started the run, but I could feel the humidity. My gut got worse as well, so even while I was running really slow, I just couldn't take deep breaths in because of my gut being really high humidity. It was 80% humidity yesterday. Can't even breathe properly normally when it's high humidity. So yeah, it was just, I was just not ready and trained in those conditions, so I had trouble breathing, so I really had to slow it down, had to walk some of the first 1 or 2 Ks just to let the stomach settle. And yeah, from there it was just a very difficult half marathon afterwards. You can see the loop here. You do a little loop around the convention center, you come out, you come around the airport strip, do a little U kind of shape around the airport, do that long stretch from the airport all the way down to near Chenang Beach. You run along the road adjacent to Chenang Beach, do a U-turn, come up to Pelangi Beach Resort, which is where the finish line is, but it's a 2-lap course, so you pass the finish line, you go all the way back up to the airport and then chuck a U-turn. I was going back up to the airport to go to this U-turn bay. It just felt like forever. I was just looking for it. I'm like, where the hell is this U-turn? Because it was at the other side of the airport, pretty much, you know, near the start of the run course. Got back down to the road adjacent to Chenang Beach, and yeah, just as always, the last 2 to 3 Ks is just the longest ever. It's just a mental challenge. But yeah, eventually, the best feeling ever, getting to the finish line, hearing my name announced. One thing I also do is, like, you know, maybe 300 meters before, I check who's behind me, who's in front of me, and I might pace myself to run a bit faster or a little bit slower just to make sure I'm by myself. I'm not finishing with someone. No one's right in front of me to block the finish line. So at least when I come through the stretch, get my photo at the end, I'm by myself. And if you're by yourself, you actually get your splits at the top of the screen. If you finish alongside a couple of people, there's just a bunch of names at the top. So yeah, that was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I was glad to finish. And even though not my PB, close to, and was pretty much as slow as my first Ironman, being in the mid-range of the athletes just goes to show how challenging and how brutal that course was. I'm also generally a bit hard on myself in terms of how I perform. You know, I'm quite competitive in nature. So when I see that I'm, you know, maybe on the bottom half or only half of the rankings, I definitely think I could do better. But then I remind myself, I'm not comparing myself with ordinary people. These are athletes who train just as hard as me, dedicate as much time as me, are as focused as me, as persistent and resilient as me. So it's definitely not nothing to be in and amongst those, even if you're in the bottom, because everyone is training hard. Everyone is the same as you. Yeah, I guess you can't complain about that performance and a race like that. And let me just say, I am glad these events are done. I think that's going to be it for me for the Ironman 70.3s for a very long while, especially this year. And yeah, I'm just not gonna worry about anything until this season starts again next year. Gonna take a break from the training, just gonna have fun rides, fun runs, nothing structured, just enjoy myself and enjoy the rest of the year. I am so looking forward to it. Yesterday just took out so much of me that I'm just ready to have a break from it all. And yesterday was the Asia Pacific Championships, so it was a good vibe. A lot of people were out even for the full Ironman. The full Ironman was also on the same day, so if you are looking to race somewhere different, if you're not used to the heat, you want to try an island vibe, you want to try a Southeast Asian vibe, I would definitely recommend Langkawi in Malaysia.